What's up, Guardians, and welcome back, Hunters. I'm Profane, thanks for checking out the video. In today's video, we'll be checking out what might be the best new Hunter build in all of Destiny. The Mask of Fealty is the newest Hunter exotic that's been released with the new Revenant episode. This exotic has provided a lot of advantages when using Withering Blades, the stasis melee option. I was reluctant on using this exotic because the Renewal Grasp have been such a powerful exotic option to build around whenever using a stasis focused build, but the Mask of Fealty quickly solidified its dominance, and it's proven to be a formidable option whenever using the standard stasis or prismatic subclasses. Because of the added benefits of the elemental buffs like Radiance, I do find this exotic to perform better whenever it's used with Prismatic, but I have included build links for both setups down in the description so that you can try both out for yourself. The Mask of Fealty comes with the Null Factor intrinsic trait, which provides several enhancements to the Witherblade's melee option. Once it's been thrown, your Withering Blade will create small stasis crystals whenever they bounce or hit a target. This will generate up to 2 different stasis crystals, and when those Withering Blades hit targets or crystals, you'll generate 7.5% bonus melee energy. We've got 2 charges available, so with increased regeneration getting provided, we'll be able to throw this a lot more often. Whenever we cause a frozen enemy or a stasis crystal to shatter with our Withering Blade, 3 smaller Withering Blades will fan out from the target, and each one of those have the ability of creating their own crystals and additional melee energy. This ends up giving us quite the advantage when it comes to crowd control, because we'll be able to keep enemies subdued with a constant barrage of slow and freezing effects, and that's going to synergize extremely well with this season's focus towards stasis energies, as we have several artifact mods that will cater to the use of stasis abilities and weapons. Before we talk about artifact mods, let's first take a look into our Prismatic class tree. We are using the combination of Stylish Executioner and Winter Shroud as our prismatic aspects. Winter Shroud will send out a burst of chill whenever we dodge. Whenever we slow enemies with our dodge, we'll trigger a 3-second buff that increases our class ability regeneration to 300%. And since we are using Gambler's Dodge, we will be refilling our melee energy in the process, which means we can instantly follow up our dodge with a barrage of Withering Blades, and that's a combination that we'll be able to call upon often. Another key benefit in using Winter Shroud is that after we perform our dodge, we will gain a 50% bonus in damage resistance, and that's going to last for 4 seconds. So not only are we going to be able to shut down large groups of enemies with constant darkness debuffs, but we'll also be able to improve our overall durability, helping us stay alive in the toughest of environments. Stylish Executioner provides us with 2 key benefits. The first is invisibility. We'll turn invisible whenever we defeat enemies with any of our abilities, and that includes enemies defeated by elemental effects like Shatter or even Ignitions. Having a brief period of invisibility gives us an opportunity to reposition, to regain health, and to outlast brutal onslaughts. And whenever we're invisible and throw our Withering Blade, they will cause enemies to become weakened with a 15% debuff, which translates into 15% increased damage from any ability or weapon. We are using Dusk-filled grenades to stay on theme with the focus of slowing and freezing enemies, but if we were to be using a stasis build, I would recommend using Glacier grenades instead, since hitting those crystals with Withering Blade will trigger the benefits of the Mask of Fealty. When it comes to our choice in super, it's a bit of a toss-up, and it's going to rely on the modifiers of each activity, but we will be using either Silence and Squall or Tether. Silence and Squall will extend our ability to freeze enemies and trigger tons of shattering effects, but by using Tether, we can pull big groups of enemies into one central location while triggering a 30% weakening debuff, which is going to let us deal out much more damage with our abilities and weapons. Another benefit of using Tether is that we could pair that up with the Facet of Purpose. This fragment would grant a Void Overshield whenever collecting an orb. We would gain Frost Armor whenever using Silence and Squall, but by having a Void Overshield, we'll gain a 70% bonus in damage resistance, which is much more than Frost Armor could ever provide. And because of some of the artifact mods that we'll talk about here soon, we're going to have ways of activating Frost Armor already, so if we were to be using Silence and Squall, we wouldn't really have a need for Facet of Purpose. With that said, let's talk about the fragments that we are using. We've got Facet of Dawn, which is giving us that Radiance that we mentioned earlier. When we strike enemies with our Withering Blade, we will activate Radiance, and when it's active, we'll gain a 25% bonus in weapon damage. And any weapon that's not already preset to handle a champion will be able to pierce barrier champion shields. With 2 Withering Blade charges and improved regeneration, we should be able to maintain Radiance as long as we're engaged in combat. Since we'll be inflicting non-stop darkness debuffs against our enemies, we are using Facet of Courage, which will give all of our light-based abilities a 10% increase in damage. We're currently not equipped with any light abilities, but this will increase the damage of Scorch, Ignitions, Jolt, Suppression, and Volatile created by weapons. So by using weapons that can create these effects, we'll be able to reap the benefits of that increased damage. Weapons that trigger Scorch and Ignitions are what we're really looking for, because those are going to benefit from Facet of Ruin. This will increase the radius of ignitions and shattering effects, and it increases the damage dealt by shattering crystals and frozen enemies. Since all of the enemies that we engage with will get frozen, adding ignitions in there will be the perfect addition to maximize on the benefits of the Mask of Fealty. If we're not using Facet of Purpose, then we are going to be using Facet of Hope. This will give us a 60% bonus in the regeneration rate of our class ability whenever we have an elemental buff active, which does include Radiance. So adding this in with the bonus energy created by Winter Shroud, we'll be able to have our dodge energy back incredibly fast, which will keep us loaded up with Withering Blades. The last fragment that we're using is Facet of Awakening. This will generate elemental pickups based on the energy that we use when rapidly defeating enemies. With how we are currently set up, this will create Fire Sprites, which grant bonus grenade energy, and Stasis Shards, which create bonus melee energy. And if we were to be using Tether, we would be creating Void Breaches, which would provide bonus class ability energy. Since we are using the Served Cold artifact mod, we'll gain bonus class ability and melee energy whenever collecting Void Breaches and Stasis Shards, doubling down on our ability regeneration. So by combining the benefits of Facet of Awakening with Served Cold, we'll be able to substantially increase the uptime of all of our abilities. When it comes to the rest of the artifact mods that we're using, we are using Hail the Storm, which will have a direct impact on our use of Mask of Fealty. This will cause tiny shards of ice to release whenever shattering stasis crystals. These shards will slow nearby enemies, and when we have the associated tonic active, the damage dealt by shattering frozen enemies and crystals will be increased by 12.5%, so don't forget to activate those tonics. The Wind Chill artifact mod will grant us with Frost Armor whenever we land precision hits with stasis weapons. Each stack of Frost Armor provides 4.5% damage resistance, so it's not going to be a lot, but it will help, and it will stack on top of the damage resistance that we gain after dodging, and when we have Overshields active. We can increase the production of stasis crystals with the Crystalline Converter mod, and this will really amplify the performance of the Mask of Fealty, as it creates bonus stasis crystals whenever we throw our Withering Blade. This will spawn between 1 and 3 extra crystals, based on how many shards we picked up beforehand, which is a good reason that we're using Facet of Awakening. Conductive Cosmic Crystal would improve our damage against frozen and slowed enemies, but that's only when we're using Arc or Void abilities, which we're not using. So we would only want to equip this mod if we're using weapons that come with the Dark Ether origin trait. So instead of Conductive Cosmic Crystal, we are using Brain Freeze, which will cause frozen enemies to emit a field of stasis energy that slows nearby enemies. This will help us spread that debuff across enemies much more easily, so that we can cash in on the bonus damage provided by Facet of Courage. We could incorporate grenade launchers into our build to be able to use the Concussive Reload mod, but since our Withering Blade will trigger those weakening effects for us, and our Tether will cause a 30% debuff, we're not really going to need to rely on that artifact mod. With class tree and artifact mods now addressed, let's talk about the best weapons to pair with the Mask of Fealty. We mentioned earlier that weapons that create Scorch and Ignitions will be ideal, but we also want to use stasis weapons that are going to be able to cause slow and freeze. So when it comes to legendary weapons, we want to keep an eye out for those that come with Chill Clip, Headstone, Cold Steel, and Incandescent. And within that box, we have weapons like the Callous Mini Tool, the Heliocentric, the Riptide, the Liturgy, the Rake Angle, and Aberrant Action as just a few standout options. When it comes to exotic weapons, the ones that I find to perform the best with this build are the Icebreaker, the Polaris Lance, the Dragon's Breath, the the Conditional Finality, and Aegir's Scepter. All of these exotics are going to synergize with our focus around freezing enemies and causing ignitions. If you're trying to light your own ignition and boost your energy levels whenever you're grinding away at Destiny, then you may want to check out the amazing gaming supplements that are available over at Advanced GG. With a ton of different mixes designed to help with energy levels, hydration, and focus, you'll be able to find exactly what you're in need of. And by using my promo code, which is down in the description below, you'll be able to get all of those awesome products at a discounted price. With our weapon loadouts now addressed, let's move over to the armor and armor mods that we'll be using with this build. When it comes to character stats, the main two that we want to focus on are resilience and mobility. Tier 10 resilience will reduce incoming damage by 30%, so this will be a must-have for in-game content. And since our dodge is going to refuel our melee energy, it'll be better off for us to focus towards mobility instead of strength. We would still want to focus towards strength to a certain degree, but we don't need to feel as required to have it at tier 10. As far as armor mods go, our main goal is to create orbs and generate as much bonus melee energy as we can. With mods like Momentum Transfer and Outreach, we'll be able to regenerate melee energy whenever using our dodge and grenade. And by using the hands-on mod, we'll gain bonus super energy whenever we defeat enemies with our Withering Blade. Since we've got all of these sources of bonus ability energy coming in, we've decided to use those armor charges that we create from picking up orbs and use those to fuel weapon surge mods, so that we'd be able to deal out as much as 17% bonus damage out of whichever energy type we so desire. So between buffs like Radiance and weapon surges, alongside debuffs like Facet of Courage and Void Weakening, we're going to be able to increase our overall damage output substantially, making this one hell of a powerful hunter build that will dominate at any level of content. So if you haven't given the Mask of Fealty a try yet, it's damn well time you do so. And if you haven't gotten this exotic yet, well, you need to start leveling up your ranking with Master Raoul. With that said, I wish you all the best of luck out there. If you need help putting together a stasis or prismatic version of today's build, be sure to check out my Mobalytics link that's down below. Thank you as always for checking out today's video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And a big shout out and thank you to all of the current channel members. Your ongoing support is greatly appreciated. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.